start? Great.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So myself, Stas, and Heikki are the founders of Neon. Previously, I was the CEO and founder of Single Store, former MemSQL, which is a pre-IPO company, hopefully going public next year. Stas and Heikki are longtime Postgres hackers. Heikki is a committer and has a long history, probably a 20-year history of contributing to Postgres itself, to the Postgres engine. And Anna leads our product. Our mission is to bring Postgres into the cloud in the most open and most consumable way. So everything we do is open source. Our goal is to build serverless Postgres. And in order to build serverless Postgres, we are separating storage and compute. That is a non-trivial systems project, which builds the next generation storage that allows for Postgres itself to be stateless, because it just attaches to that global cloud native, scalable multi-tenant storage. And it has a number of great implications to this architecture. The first one is obviously it's serverless. And this is something that we'll demonstrate in a second. The second is that since we control storage, we can allow databases to branch. And that is incredibly important for the modern developer workflow when people continuously branch code, but they cannot branch their database. So now the ability to branch enables various CI/CD workflows. And this is part of the reason that we asked for this meeting today. And then in the future, with our kind of full control of storage, we can bring Postgres into the edge as well. So allow people to have very low latency reads because we can push data close to the user into point of presence or a data center close to the user. Now, when we look at Postgres itself, right, it's very clear that it's capturing developer imagination. And if you look at DB Engine ranking, for example, on dbengines.com, you will see that this is the #4 database and the only one that is growing out of the top 5 databases, which are Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, then Postgres, then Mongo. And Postgres is increasing the gap between Postgres and Mongo right now. So the one, I would say, disadvantage of Postgres that it is today is that it's not built for the cloud. And we're bridging that gap by creating this cloud native storage in an open source way with the support of the community and with a number of Postgres hackers on the team. So let me just show what we have, and then we can flip to a discussion. So the first thing is that if we go to, I'll just kind of start from the beginning and I'll log out. I was just in Miami Tech Week and showing this to a bunch of people. So you go sign in and you create a new Postgres cluster. Then you can go and start querying it, just for example, select one, and it's already up and running. So if you click on operations, you will see that it took about 4 seconds to provision a Postgres instance in the cloud. That is a highly available, fully durable Postgres instance. If you take anything that's out there, Heroku or Railway app or Fly.io or AWS, it takes a lot longer to set up a Postgres instance. So this is basically an instant way of getting Postgres. We allow people, in fact, if you go to the dashboard and look what we're connecting into, so it's just a DNS endpoint in the cloud. We actually allow to simply do psql-h start zenith.tech. It's going to be connect neon.tech in the future. And it will provision a cluster for you. So from there, you can see here, you can see a bunch of clusters, And I can show you a cold start, right? So type in select one. A cold start of an existing cluster takes about 2 seconds. And now, that query is instant. So this is the first demonstration of how quickly you can have Postgres provisioned with separation of storage and compute. And now I will also pass it to Stas, who will show a potential GitLab integration with CI/CD and branching.
Yeah, hey. So Nikita mentioned that we have CI/CD, so that we have branching capabilities, and with branching idea that branch creation is instant, so you're not copying anything, it's a copy on write. And more like, wait a second, I'll try to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and with branching, we are thinking mostly of integration with CI/CD. So I create a small example app. It's just a basic Rails app which has one table, users. Let's look at the database schema. So it just has name and email, and there is no not null constraints. And I created a small script that inserted in a GitLab CI. And what we are doing here, so it just open tokens. I could put that in a secrets, but whatever. It's more explicit that way. So we go to our API, and we create a branch of cluster. An idea is that you have a running production cluster somewhere, but usually people copy the production database once per week or with some periodicity to the staging environment, so that you can check your migrations on the real data. And what we are thinking of is that you have your production database, and you could just create a branch of it. It's instant, and you wouldn't have this weak gap where that like data that can break your migration can actually appear. And at the same time, we know that branch will not influence the main database. So what we are doing here is we're creating a branch, and this query will return you a JSON with database info. And basically, we are constructing a new connection string, and we are running RakeDB migrate against that branch. And I have a PR, actually MR, which forces not null columns. Yeah, so it's forces not null columns, and that's all that thing is connected to my Zenith account. That's a database. Let's look at the users. And again, it's spinning up. So now it was down because it was like 10 minutes inactive, and now it is there. And we have one user that's actually have null name, so that PR is actually failing. And let's go here. Migration check, and you will see that like problem that it is not passing due to null values. Yeah, let's delete it. Let's delete both. Oh no, let's delete it from users. Where? Okay, let's try to trigger the job again. Merge request. And that actually should now pass. I think can I actually trigger that again, or I need to force push it to trigger.
Because we have a limited amount of time, I suggest we move to
Yeah.
questions.
No.
Yeah,
There's a
sure.
bunch in the doc already.
But that
First one
should
is
turn
by,
green.
Sri.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So basically, I think it's clear, right? So it's a serverless Postgres. It's in the cloud. It's serverless and branchable because of the separation of storage and compute. We are launching this platform June 1st. We've built this CI/CD GitLab integration. We're ready to answer questions. And then it would be awesome for us, obviously, but I think hopefully awesome to you as well, to figure out how we can help each other with a platform like this, with a developer platform like this. So I'll pause and happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Stas and Nikita, for the demo so far. Quick question, which market segments are you going after? Yeah, so we're starting with SMB and mid-market, right? Unlike Single Store, who went straight into the enterprise, we're starting at the lower end, and our goal is to win developers, making it extremely easy for people to start. Over time, because of the abundance of Postgres in pretty much every segment of the market, over time, we'll obviously turn on the enterprise jets, but we are starting with SMB and mid-market. Okay, and why would that segment go for your solution versus? I'm sorry if this is a rude question, but there are so many managed Postgres services. So, what sticks out in your offering? Yeah, so I think obviously we pre-launch, right? So all we have right now is hypotheses, and these are the hypotheses that we have at hand. The first one, it's the easiest to start. Right. It's the easiest to start because it's an API call to get Postgres, and it's and it runs in every cloud. So it's just the first one is easy. The second one is we have a number of exciting partners, including Vercel, Netlify, a number of like SQL editors that all need Postgres, and we're giving them an API call to free Postgres. So I think the other one is kind of partner channel thing that is together with the fact that it has a generous free tier. The third thing is when we think about differentiation, branching is that differentiation, right? So we're hoping to create a lot of excitement around the fact that you can create branches and plug it into your developer workflow. And then purely from the kind of the mind share, one, it's serverless Postgres, B, it's open sourced and connected to the community, and C, it's an open source alternative to AWS Aurora, which allows us from the mind share standpoint to raise a flag and say, this is the canonical architecture for Cloud Postgres, and these are the bits. So this will help us to become the default. Yeah, thank you. Fair enough. The branching is pretty cool. Just a quick random question. Console.neon.tech, where are the databases being provisioned right now? As of right now, it's AWS.
If you're, yeah, you're done. Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think there is like a fairly straightforward path towards integration if we do end up being interested in doing that. Victor, let me type his name in, is the PM for Configure, which is who manages this stuff right now. I'll link to the source as well, but basically we have this conventional deployment workflow embedded in GitLab CI, which involves optionally spinning up a Postgres alongside what we call your review application. I think this use case that we already support today aligns perfectly with what you guys are offering, especially in regards to the branching strategy. And right now, like our opinionated workflow requires that the user spin up a Postgres instance in their Kubernetes cluster alongside their application, which obviously like leads to some scalability issues on like the platform operator side, as well as just sort of like issues with the maintenance of all these Postgres instances that you potentially spin up through merge requests. But also like what we do doesn't address the pain point of having to seed the database with some default schema and some default set of data. And I think that that is something that is really annoying for developers to manage themselves, especially in the MR workflow, that you guys seem to address very well. I can put you in touch with Victor to see if they'd be interested in integrating something like this on the configure side. But the shell script that I linked to is where this happens, and you can see it's pretty obvious like what the touch points would be there. I definitely think it's cool, and I also find like when you were first pitching it, I thought it was just like serverless Postgres from the end user's perspective, and you guys are kind of like using serverless as a misnomer, but the fact that you have like addressed the storage backend and are streaming the like leveraging wall to stream everything and replicate it into S3, I think is really cool, and it's neat that that is what enables you to do the branching stuff.
Right. We can another thing on the roadmap is to create templates. And again, because we separate storage and compute, and S3 is the kind of the low cost tier in that storage, we can publish a large number of templates, and that is addressing your seeding question, right? You can create instantly with the same time. Within 4 seconds, you'll be able to create a Postgres instance seeded with something that is inside the registry.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's cool. And then I also just thought, you mentioned fly.io already, but I would definitely encourage you to get in touch with Kurt Mackey, and you can tell him I sent him your way. He might have insights from a product perspective because he was the founder of Compose.
I would love an introduction.
Okay.
So as for next steps, that would be connecting to Victor and introduction to Kurt. Anything else you guys can see is useful for your platform? And is there like a place for neon button somewhere in the inside GitLab? You know, you push it, get instant.
I think Sri can answer that for Cloudseed. Victor can answer that for GitLab CI/CD, and whatever comes out of that, I think you're most likely to have to do the work of actually kind of writing the code to add it in. Sri?
Yeah, a quick answer. So Cloudseed, you can think of Cloudseed as an open source adapter layer over GitLab.com, which connects to various infra providers and clouds and so on. So just to quickly answer your question, in terms of a place for you to contribute, it's open source and we can't stop you. So if you send an MR our way, we can definitely have a look at that. There are two aspects. One is building the pipeline, which you have done some of the work already. So thank you, Stas, for that. The second is to take care of the user experience. So the setting up of the config and authentication and things like that within the project interface. For that, you can send us your concepts. I saw somewhere in the notes that you already have some concepts in terms of the UI. So happy to look at that. That will go through the standard GitLab design review. But then if you just keep the user in mind and you design something and you propose a concept, I think that is the best way forward.
Yeah, so don't write all the code, just give us a wireframe of how it would look. Don't spend a ton of time and effort until we align on, yes, we want this in the UI. I think for Sri, for you, it might be hard because right now you're working with GCP, and then having a second option that is like non-hyper cloud might be confusing. What do you think?
Yeah, that is a fair thing to say right now. The long-term goal is to support multiple infra providers. So while GCP is top priority right now, I'm happy to look at the concepts from your side.
Yeah, I think, see, the problem is a bit more that like the concept of Cloudseed is like make it easy to use all the managed services of a hypercloud, and this is not a managed service on a hypercloud.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I think that's the tough thing there.
Yeah.
Are you open to that? Like doing a mix of hypercloud services plus non-hypercloud, like and the MongoDB Atlas and Neon of this world?
Yeah. So just to quickly answer that, I need to think about it a lot more, but just to quickly answer that, one way to look at it is to make consumption of hypercloud simple. Second is to address use cases. So if you address use cases for the end user, and we just happen to use a hypercloud in that scenario, it doesn't have to be. So it depends which way you look at this problem. But I'd love to hear more about, why a user should pick your service over Cloud SQL or AWS Postgres, because especially with SMB and mid-market, maybe there is more of more flexibility there. For enterprise, you'll have to make a stronger case.
Sure.
But happy to see concepts and explore this further.
Very cool. Well, time check is 9:26. So thank you so much for your time. We'll absolutely follow up with that, and we'll build the wireframe integration, and hopefully we'll see a day where we can have this working with the GitLab.
Yeah, I think database branching makes so much sense. So I'd love to see this in GitLab if we can make it work.
Thank you, Sid.